Welcome to Sakshi TV's special immigration show with attorney Ms. Prashanthi Reddy from Law Offices of Prashanthi Reddy, PLLC. Please note that Sakshi TV now has 3 immigration shows every week on Tuesday at 3 p.m. EST with attorney Ms. Sheila Murthy, Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. EST with attorney Prashanthi Reddy in English, and on Friday at 6 p.m. EST with Bhanu Ilindra. Please tune in to ask your questions. If you are an immigration attorney and would like to join our special shows, please email us at usa@sakshi.com or call 866-725-7441. Before we begin the show, please note that the information provided on this show is not a legal advice and is for general informational purposes only. Sakshi TV or its agents will not be responsible for use of information. If you need specific legal advice, please contact the attorney directly. Ms. Prashanthi needs no introduction, but if you need consultation, please log on to reddyesq.com for contact information. And when you connect with them, don't forget to mention Sakshi TV. From the beginning, reddyesq.com has put a wealth of free information and online tools in the hands of immigrant community and for the benefit of you as employers. The reddyesq.com site provides you with latest and cutting-edge information on US immigration law and policies explained in terms you don't have to be a lawyer to understand. Today's topic is the immigration updates. We will continue the knowledge session along with the news and updates on latest immigration, followed by Q&A. Before we get into the topic, you can call us on the numbers on the screen for questions related to immigration and also ask tips. Hello, Ms. Reddy. Before we get to the topic, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Very well, thank you. So, Ms. Reddy, do we have any latest immigration updates for this week?
Yes, our whole entire topic is about immigration updates.
Right.
So I think we can start with, since this is our last show for this year, because next week we're not doing a show. So I thought we would start with, some of the biggest immigration stories in 2021. I thought that would be a good way to start. So a lot has happened in this year, maybe less compared to last year, because a lot more happened last year, but still a significant changes have happened this year because there was, a new government, and whenever there's a new government, there's always changes. And since it was a Democratic government, it was more pro-immigration. This government is more pro-immigration, Democratic or Republican, whatever it might be, but it's more pro-immigration. So a lot of good things did happen. So first thing is, as soon as Biden came into the office, he rolled back all the discriminatory policies that the previous government was following. So he wasted no time in undoing those policies. First being lifting of the ban on immigrants and temporary visitors from the Muslim majority countries. Trump had placed a ban on visitors from that country and permanent residents from that immigration from that country, so he lifted that ban. In addition to that, the other rollbacks were also putting an end to the public charge rule. So this public charge rule was basically a wealth test that made it much harder for lower income people to get green cards. So before you actually got a green card approval, you had to pass this new public charge rule, which was really difficult because it was not just your present income that was being looked into, but your potential for future income as well. So a lot of it, there's a lot of it that was subjective, and especially with family-based cases, if you're a 65-year-old parent immigrating through your child, what economic standing will you have? You are in this, you're retired most probably. So it's very difficult for family-based immigration. So the good thing is that they removed that public charge rule. Also, they preserved and further strengthened DACA, that deferred action for childhood arrivals. So the children who came here for high school and found that they were out of status for no fault of their own, that is what DACA is. It gives them a special status. And the Trump administration tried to upend that rule, and basically Biden administration reinstated it. Expanding the U.S. refugee program, asylum refugee cases were really almost at a standstill under Trump's administration, and the new administration slowly is bringing it back to normal, but it's not quite back to normal as yet. removing the wall. I mean, not removing the wall. They can't do that, but halting the construction of the wall on the US-Mexico border. Many thought that it was useless building a wall. Instead, there should be other policies in place which prevent the need for people to come to the US. So that's something that they're looking into.
Right, Ms. Reddy, with your due permission, we have a caller on hold.
Sure.
Right. So, Mr. Raju from Pennsylvania is on the line. Thank you for calling, Raju. You may ask Ms. Reddy your question directly.
Hello, Prashanthi. This is Raju.
Hi. Hi.
Hi. Actually, my visa expired in 2019 December, and in 2018 I got into issue with my wife that caused a domestic violence misdemeanor, and that got dismissed and expunged immediately. So that was an argument with my wife. A neighbor complained about that, and that caused that. And I'm still in US and I'm continuing my stay. And if I'm going for stamping, will that cause any issue? And do I need to carry what all the documents for if I'm going to India sometime next year?
Non-immigrant status right now, and you said something about your status expiring in December?
Yeah, next year December my status is expiring.
Oh, next year December. Okay, got it. So basically, if you're going for a visa, it's not an issue because domestic violence cases, especially with the facts that you gave me, it looks like a misdemeanor. Was it a misdemeanor, or what were you convicted of, or were you convicted of anything or not?
No, it's a misdemeanor, and it got dismissed and expunged immediately.
Okay, so there was a conviction, but it was a misdemeanor, so that's not an issue because even for your green card it's not an issue, and even for your non-immigrant visa, getting that, it's not an issue. You just have to give them court certified copies or originals of the final decision, the expungement order, and it basically comes under the petty offense exception. So for you, there's no bar for getting a visa or getting a green card, but depending on the consulate officer, they may say that there's something about whether the person has good moral turpitude or not. Question of moral turpitude. Take some letters from your neighbors, friends, saying what a good citizen you are, what charity work you've done, etc., etc. Maybe a letter from your employer saying what exemplary employee you are. And all this only submit if they ask for it, obviously, otherwise you're not going to submit. But there might be a question in the visa form which asks if you've ever been arrested, and you need to answer truthfully to all those questions.
Right. So thank you for calling, Raju. I hope that answered your question. So, Ms. Reddy, you were telling us about the wall between US and Mexico.
The wall. You remember the wall.
Yes, I remember the wall particularly.
Yeah, right. So that was actually, we were talking about Biden, the changes that he made, and that was one of them. After that, the next big event that happened in this year is basically, continues to happen, is COVID-19. None of us can ignore that. It's always a looming presence, right, in our lives from the last 2+ years. So COVID-19 continues to disrupt travel and immigration for a second year running, and US embassies and consulates around the world have just started to reopen and resume the processing of immigrant and non-immigrant visa appointments. So it's better than it was last year, but it's still very slow and erratic. And some consulates are still offering limited services, some remain closed. So this has exacerbated the already massive green card backlog. So the State Department announced that there's a backlog in November of 461,125 immigrant applications that were waiting for interviews.
Right.
So that's a lot. But it's slightly less, about 10,000 less than what it was in October. So there's, some progress happening. since October. And interviews are, the schedule interviews are increased by about 12%. But at this rate, we predict that it'll take at least 58 months or so, 60 months for things to return back to pre-pandemic levels, and for consulate appointments to be available easily, unless they come up with some method of expediting them.
And we hope
Citizenship,
sincerely that they do. With that, Ms. Reddy, we have another caller on hold, Ms. Raji from Arizona. Thank you for calling,
Sure.
Raji. You may ask Ms. Reddy your question directly.
Hi, Reddy. So this is regarding my H4 EAD. It is going to expire in December 31st. I had my I-94 valid till January 10th. Recently 180 days auto extension rule came. I applied my H4 EAD extension in August. So my current H4 EAD will going to have auto renewal of 180 days, or it is going to renew till my I-94 expires.
So it is the least of the two. So whichever is lesser time, that will happen. So it looks like January 10th or whatever that date is that your I-94 is expiring, it will be auto renewed until that time, not further than that. Unless, so you'll have to then stop working at that point. And then if your H4 gets renewed faster than your H4 EAD, then you can restart maybe once the H4 I-94 again becomes valid. But otherwise, you only have until that January period when your I-94 expires.
Okay.
Right. Thank you for calling, Raji. I hope that answered your question. So, Ms. Reddy, you were telling us about how there are 58 months it might take, or more than that, for things to get back to how it was
for the
pre-pandemic.
consulate. Right. So consulates can still take a long time. So that still we don't have a lot of good news on the consulate front, but the naturalization front we have slightly better news. The U.S. government naturalized about 800,000 permanent residents, so nearly 200,000 more than last year. So because in last year in 2020, USCIS had stopped citizenship interviews and had stopped oath ceremonies. So there were tens and thousands of people waiting in the backlog for citizenship. But this year they've started back again, and the progress is pretty good. Still not as much as again pre-pandemic. Pre-pandemic there was about 100,000 more citizenship cases approved. Not 100,000, 40,000 more citizenship cases approved. In 2019, 843,000 compared to 800,000. So we're still not back, but we're very close to those numbers. Also, there's been imposition of a COVID vaccine requirement on all immigrant cases and international travelers, of course. So all those filing for a green card after October 1st are required to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 to be able to get the green card, or and that is usually has to be submitted along with your medicals when you're filing the 485. And foreign travelers entering the country must show, proof of full vaccination as well as a negative PCR test within 1 day of departure. So that's important. That's what happened this year. Then border crossings, people entering across the border, the southern border and the northern border. So that has rebounded this year compared to last year, because the borders were closed. The physical land borders were closed in 2020. So now they have reopened. So a large number of people are arriving at the US borders and being processed there. So that's a good thing. And of course, we talked about this last time, Build Back Better immigration reform policies introduced by Biden. But the policies, nothing has happened so far. We've talked about the facts of this, what they want to do. They want to give temporary status with EAD to people who entered, undocumented immigrants, and decrease the the waiting for green cards by different measures affecting the green card numbers, but no success as yet, and we will talk about that more in detail if we have time. And then there have been several changes
Right. Would you
at
want to talk
USCIS
about the
also.
visa bulletin for January, Ms. Reddy?
Yes, I will. Once
Right.
I finish with what happened in 2021, I will go to that. So the last
Yes,
thing
ma'am.
to talk about for 2021 is the changes at USCIS. A lot of changes have occurred. USCIS made a number of meaningful changes. They've removed the name alien because initially everybody was not a citizen or a permanent resident, was addressed as an alien, described as an alien, and that was thought to be a derogatory term. So in its policy manual, they've replaced the name alien with non-citizen or undocumented non-citizen, depending on what the facts are. Also, they're announcing a new and testing a new way to calculate processing times so that they can be more accurate in giving us setting expectations right, so that their processing time calculation on their websites are more accurate, so people will know how long in advance they need to file. Right now they're not accurate, and it keeps changing, but the website never gets updated with the current processing times. They're never accurate. Also, they want to make the forms more accurate, and for the first time the Senate also made history when it named Jadao as the new head of USCIS. She's a woman and of Arab and Mexican descent, so that's another definitely a landmark decision by the Senate to appoint a minority as well as a woman as the head of USCIS. So those are some of the updates. I mean, some, not the updates, but what happened, this last year with reference to immigration. Now, just coming to some latest updates. First is the visa bulletin for January. Torni was very eager to hear about what January visa bulletin has to offer.
We're always looking forward to the future, onwards and
Yeah,
upwards.
true. So the visa bulletin, there's no good news or bad news. The good news is there's no bad news. So it remains pretty much status quo compared to last month.
Right.
There's been no change in the family-based green card waiting period for all the countries except Mexico. There's been 2 months difference. There's a decrease in 2 months. No change for immediate family members. Immediate family members, Mexico, 2 months decrease. For the regular family members, there's no change at all. Last month versus this month. Let me just give it to you by category actually. For F2B, unmarried children of US green card holders, there's a 2 months change for Mexico. Married children of US citizens, 1 month change for Mexico. Siblings of US citizens, 3 weeks change for Mexico. Other countries, if I don't mention, that means there's no change. EB1, employment-based category 1, no change at all. It's current for all countries. EB2, no change at all. India is still July 2013, and China is still April 1. So nothing has changed there. EB3, again, no change. China is April 1, 2018, sorry. And India is January 22nd, 2012, so no change. EB4, for those who are interested, no change. So EB5, which is the investor visa, also no change. So as you can see, visa bulletin, it's good news actually, because as long as it doesn't retrogress, even if it doesn't move forward, we're good, because there are a lot of people who became eligible to file in the EB2 category for Indian nationals, so they continue to be eligible to do that. The second, Tony, thing that I wanted to talk about is the, what's happening with that.
Waiver of in-person interviews.
Oh, okay. You want me to talk about that? Okay. So, waiver of in-person interviews, that's a big one. Because so basically what the Department of State has decided is that they will temporarily waive interview requirements, and about 49,000 immigrant visa applications are affected by this in a good way. And so it's based on a temporary final rule published on Friday. It applies to those applicants who were already approved for an immigrant visa in the same classification on the same basis on or after August 4th, 2019. So those are the preconditions. So if that has happened, then they don't have to again go for a immigrant visa interview. The rule will be in effect from December 13, 2021 to 2023. So according to the rule, consular officers can decide whether or not to waive in-person requirements. They may either call or email the applicants if they have any questions. It's the rule to help address the problem of applicants who are unable to travel due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So, for example, you got your green card interview appointment, you went for it, but you did not travel within that period of time. Within a year, you're supposed to travel, and because you didn't, you have to go through the process again, which is the interview and etc. etc. So now they're saying you don't have to. If they have any further questions, they can just waive that in-person interview and ask questions via email or phone call. But this is based on the discretion, of course, of the State Department. So this is great because it will allow, being able to reach them if there are any mistakes or if they want any updates via email, rather than having them come in person and then wait for that interview to be scheduled in person, is really good news. And a lot of my clients were not able to come in. A lot of people who call me for appointments, just these are the questions they have, that their family members couldn't come in on time, and so what happens now? So this is good news for them.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead, Tony.
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Right. So the other update, I guess, is what happened with the Biden immigration reforms. We talked about that at length, about what those immigration reforms were. But what happened is, again, not good news. It's a stalemate. So for the third time, the Senate parliamentarian rejected the proposal with reference to, they've added some immigration clauses in the 1.75 trillion spending bill. And the Senate parliamentarian McDonough struck down these revised arguments, stating that the proposal once again didn't follow Senate rules. Democrats initially had hoped to include a pathway to citizenship for DACA, for farm workers, essential workers, but they were forced to revise their proposal after McDonough rejected it on 2 occasions. Their third attempt expanded on immigration parole. That's a program that offers work authorization and protection from deportation, and that could have protected about 7 million undocumented immigrants who've been living in the US since 2011. This is disappointing that the proposal was rejected. And they're still saying that they will continue to pursue it through other means. And the Democrats are advancing the bill through a process known as budget reconciliation, which allows the legislation to pass it with a simple majority, but we don't know yet if that will be successful or not. So it's still a stalemate. It couldn't proceed based on how they wanted it to proceed. So they'll have to find other ways. They can always ignore what the parliamentarian said, but as of now, I don't think they intend to do that. So I think they're going to find other ways of getting this done. So that's a setback but hopefully it's only a temporary setback, and they'll find ways of getting this through, or parts of this bill at least, getting them through.
Right.
Yeah. And then last but not the least, since this is like holiday season, the vaccination requirements. Everyone has to be reminded again of what the vaccination requirements are to enter the US. And it keeps changing, so we can go through that briefly. So most international travelers entering the US will need to be fully vaccinated and show proof of vaccination before boarding a US bound flight. Those applying for a green card will also need to show proof of vaccination and when attending the immigration medical exam and getting that medical exam through the doctors. If you're a US citizen or a green card holder, you'll need to show proof of fully vaccination or a negative COVID test taken within 24 hours before your departure. So if you're not a US citizen, then you need to do both. If you're a US citizen, you will need to show either full proof of full vaccination or negative COVID test taken within 24 hours before departure. Those who are fully vaccinated will of course need to show proof of full vaccination as
Right.
well. Yeah, within 24 hours of departure. So it's just
Right.
something to keep in mind. If you're not a US citizen, then you need to show fully vaccinated as well as a negative COVID test. If you are a US citizen, it's possible that you may not be fully vaccinated, but you have to show that you've taken a COVID test within 24 hours.
Right.
But there is, of course, exemptions to the vaccination requirement. Children under the age of 18 are exempted. Those traveling for emergency or humanitarian reasons, this is a catch-all phrase, they are exempted. Those traveling from countries with low vaccination availability, you come from a country where they're not available, so you couldn't take them. That's a
Right.
possible exemption.
Right. So with that, Miss Reddy, we come to the end of this show, and the holiday season is upon us, and this being the last show for this year, we at Sakshi wish you and our viewers a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We look forward to welcoming the next year with fresher perspective and higher energy with you, Miss Reddy. Thank you for being on our show.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
You're watching Sakshi TV Live with me, Torni Makana. Thank you.